Good morning. Myself Shashidhar S. Today's my topic is about XML namespace. XML namespace stands for Extensible Markup Language. XML namespace is a collection of various names from elements. In XML, in namespace is used to prevent any conflicts with element names. Because XML allows to create our own element names, there are always the possibility of naming an element exactly the same as one another in XML document. They might be okay, we never use both documents together, but sometimes we have to use both documents. That time the XML namespace requires. But what if we need to combine the content of both documents? We will have a name conflict. We may have two different elements with a different purpose, but both with the same name. XML names are used for providing the uniquely elements attributes in XML document. They are defined in WCC documentation. An XML instance may contain element or attribute names from more than one XML vocabulary. If each vocabulary is given in namespace, the ambiguity between the identically named elements or attributes can be resolved. And a namespace is a declarative region that provides a scope to identifiers. A simple example would be consider an XML instance that contained the reference to the customer and ordered. XML namespace associates the elements attribute names in XML document with custom and predefined URIs. Okay, both the customer and the element could have the child element named ID. Reference to the ID element would be therefore ambiguous, placing them in different namespaces. A namespace name is a uniform resource identifier. A namespace is a declarative region. Typically, the URI chosen for the namespace of given XML vocabulary describes the resource under the control of author or the organization defining the vocabulary. Such a URL the author web server. However, the namespace specification does not require nor suggest the namespace URL to be used to retrieve the information. It is simply treated by XML phaser as string. Identifiers outside the namespace can access the members by using the fully qualified name for identifier. Although the term namespace URL is widespread, the W3C recommendation refers it has namespace specification, not entirely perspective, but rules and namespace. Documents where the namespace name is not valid uniform resource identifier, and many XML phases allow any character string to be used. A namespace is a set of unique names. Namespace is a mechanism in which element and attribute name can be assigned to the group. The namespace is identified by URI, uniform resource identifiers, namespace declaration. A namespace is declaration using reserved attributes. Such an attribute name must either be XMLNS or begins with XMLN as shown below. Syntax. The namespace starts with the keyword XMLNS. The word name is prefixed. The UVL is the namespace identifier. Namespaces can be declared either explicitly or by default. Thank you.